Hi everybody, I'm Amy, this is my wife Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer. I'm all about the mechanics and Maggie is all about the theme, and we are very excited to have an early prototype copy of Critic Kitchen, the new game from Cardboard Alchemy with designers Alex Cutler, fellow Australian Peter C. Haywood, and excitedly, the artist from Flamecraft, Sandara Tang. So this is a very early prototype, so everything that we're going to show you here today is subject to change, the rule set, the components, so please check out the campaign page if you want to see what makes it to the final design.
So in Critic Kitchen, we find ourselves in the beautiful world of Bistro Bay, which may look a little bit like the world of Flamecraft, but it's not. It's a completely different place.
Different town,
different setting. And so in Bistro Bay, we are restaurateurs, and it just so happens to be Restaurant Week, which is a very exciting and stressful week because there's going to be a famous celebrity critic coming to visit our town, and we want to be able to impress them. But also along the way, we want to make sure to send our chefs into all the different locations in town to collect the highest quality ingredients possible so that we can cook up these amazing different meals to also participate in different challenges, food challenges along the way. All of these things are going to give us points, and obviously whoever has the most points by the end will be the ultimate restaurateur and winner of this game.
Now, again, we really wanted to showcase how this game works, but I do want to remind you that this is a very early prototype. We already know that some changes have been made, but the core mechanics stay the same. And what you're doing in this game is every person in this game is going to have 3 workers. You have a small little mouse, a medium-sized lizard, and a large boar. Now, the little mouse is speedy because when they go out to a location, they're probably going to get to pick first, but they can only carry one ingredient back to the restaurant. Then you've got the lizard that's a little bit slower, but they're going to be able to pick up and carry up to 2 ingredients. And then we've got the boar. Now the boar is the slowest, but if you happen to maybe be the only person in the location, you might be able to take 3 things from that location and bring them back to the restaurant. So you're deciding how and where you're going to place your 3 workers. Now this all happens simultaneously because every player has a deck of cards that represents each of the locations that you'll find around town, and they're going to secretly place these down above the first worker, the second worker, and the third worker, and then we're going to simultaneously reveal these locations and then place our workers where they're going to go. So my little lizard's going to go to the soup truck, and my fast little mouse is going to go to the chef academy, and my boar is going to take their luck at the black market. And because all of the players are revealing where they're going, you're hoping that players aren't after the same ingredients as you. So Maggie might reveal her placement and it may look something like this. And then once all of the players have their workers down, we're going to play out the locations from left to right, allowing the players in turn order according to the speed of their worker, choose the ingredients to bring back to their restaurants. Now, why do we want ingredients? Well, as Maggie mentioned, we are trying to win some little competitions along the way, and every round a new dish is going to be revealed. At the end of the first 3 rounds and at the end of the second 3 rounds, we're going to be able to serve at least one of those dishes if you want, but you don't have to serve any of them if you want to save your ingredients for the critic, which is going to be the final scoring and the big scoring event that happens at the end of the game. So imagine that I'm trying to serve this comfort food. This comfort food challenge requires that I have a glass of wine, some bread, and some meat. That sounds like a delicious, comforting meal. And so if I was able to take all of this from the market across the first 3 rounds, so imagine I picked up some meat, some bread, and a glass of wine along the way, what happens is you will sum the total of the points available here. So, and actually you can have multiple bread breads that would sum together, but here you can see that I have a score of 14 for this dish. Now we compare this to the challenge, and for a plate of food that has 12 plus points but not quite 21, I get 2 stars. And so I would collect 2 stars and they would be victory points that I'd be earning along the way, but I would have to dispose of these ingredients. The long-term opportunity is to not use the ingredients in these short-term challenges and to store the ingredients for the critic at the end of the game, because the critic at the end of the game always wants to have exactly one of each of the ingredients, and they want all 7 of the ingredients. And so along the course of the game, you're also trying to get the most valuable bread so that you can serve the critic. So the option is always, do I serve it short-term and get some points, or do I wait until the end of the game? Now, obviously, a big part of this game is trying to go to locations where no one else is going and trying to second guess where they might go so that you get the most opportunity to pick up ingredients. So in an example like this, where Maggie and I both put our lizard at the desert vendor, we would be fighting to compete for who goes first to get these delicious ingredients. Now, when there is a tie like this, we look at the turn order track and you can see that Maggie is ahead of me. And because it's the first ingredient that's going to be picked from here, i.e. because there was no mouse that went first, the lizards are choosing first. And so Maggie's going to utilize that by moving her turn order tracker to the back of the queue and to use that advantage to now pick first. Now, because lizards can carry 2 ingredients, Maggie will go first. So maybe she wants this high-powered cheese, a 7 cheese. She takes the cheese. And I'm like, well, of course I'm going to take that piece of meat to put in my comfort food dish. So I will take that 6 meat. Maggie will take the 2 wine. And now I don't get to have another ingredient because Maggie went first in turn order. So turn order in this game is really important. Likewise, it might also be the case that a poor person went here and had their boar in this 3rd place, and by the time it comes around to them, there are no ingredients left for them to choose. But they do get a consolation prize. They get 1 soup token. Soup tokens are great in that they act as a wild for when you're trying to fulfill one of these dishes. So if you're missing an ingredient, you can use a soup instead, but they only contribute 1 point to the scoring system of that dish. So they're not going to really help you get a high score for that dish. Now, there are a couple of other fun elements about this market. One is I sent my boar to the black market, which has no revealed ingredients. So just like a black market, you never quite know what you're going to get and you don't know what quality those ingredients are going to be. So if you go there, and I happen to be luckily the only person that went there, so I will get 3 mystery ingredients that may or may not help me along the way. There's also the Chef Academy, and what's interesting about the way this ingredient system works is that all of the ingredients that are left over in the other locations, if they're not taken along the way, they all slide down and get donated to the Chef Academy so that the upcoming chefs can use those ingredients to create some interesting dishes. And so if I was in the Chef Academy, which I am with my mouse, I'm going to get the first pick of essentially the leftovers. But also you can recruit a new worker from this location. So there are these different workers that have different abilities, but if you are able to recruit one from the Chef Academy by placing your worker there, then next round you will have a one-off worker for that round only that is going to give you an additional little power. So you can see Marie Butterfly here acts as another fast little worker, just like the mouse, that can carry a single ingredient. So I will get the opportunity to use Marie, and Marie has a special power that if you go to a popular location and all of your opponents are also at that location, you're going to get a bonus star. So that's a one-off powerful ability that Marie will give you just for 1 round in the game. The other thing is that if there are leftover ingredients here at the Chef Academy after, I've made my selection, all of these get turned into soup and put in the soup truck for the next round of the game. So you can see that there's this sliding effect of the ingredients that's very thematic, but also has consequences for where you might choose to go out around town. So we are collecting different powered ingredients to add to our dishes, but there's a couple of other things you can grab as well. There are these rumor tokens. So at the end of the game, the critic is always scored in the same way. So So in every game, there's only one special critic that's coming to town. We picked the kangaroo because, of course. And the kangaroo has an ability that is throughout the game, you can treat 6 value ingredients as 9s. Why? Because we're down under.
Upside down. Yeah.
So we'll have a single critic, but they always score the same way at the end of the game. So the critic always wants to have one of every ingredient, which you're going to serve on your long plate. So you're collecting those along the way. They also are going to score for the most soup. Having all 7 courses will get you a bonus. And then the best of each ingredient will get you a bonus point as well. But then we're going to reveal and score these rumors. So these are end game scoring conditions that are unknown to the players at the beginning of the game. And you have an opportunity to, instead of taking an ingredient, taking one of these tokens that matches one of these rumors and get to secretly look at what that end game scoring condition is going to be. So this one is bread fanatic. And so at the end of the game, the bread course is going to be worth double points. Now that I know that information, I'm going to put all of my effort into getting a high powered bread to serve to Mr. Kangaroo, the critic. There's also spices. So if you take a spice, most of the time throughout the game, they are associated with an ingredient. So this is spice that goes best with fish. And so if I add this to a fish ingredient on any one of my dishes, that fish ingredient token is going to be doubled in points. So these are really powerful tokens that you want to be able to pick up along the way. There's also allspice that can be added to any ingredient, and in the final rounds of the game, there'll actually be more of those than are available throughout the course of the game. So you're collecting ingredients along the way, and the tension in this game is whether you serve them up on small plates for the small challenges, or the big plate where you're saving up powerful ingredients for the critic. But the challenge is that along the way, you don't have a lot of refrigeration, and at one point of the game, you need to discard down to 5 ingredients, and later in the game, you can only store 10 ingredients. So you're trying to maximize the value of your ingredients by getting rid of enough of them so that they're not going to waste, but also managing to hold on to the most powerful of them to serve the critic at the end of the game. So that gives you a bit of an overview of how it plays, but now we'll talk about some different elements that we found interesting and different to Flamecraft.
So let's start with the theme, because I'm going to say, I'd like to think that we're foodies. I would call us foodies. We love food, but we also love chasing down food that is rumored to be particularly good in different places. So and food-themed games can be a little bit hit and miss. But this game, I thoroughly enjoyed the integration of the theme into this. So everything from the actual dishes that you're kind of good for the challenges, going, oh, the comfort food or the savory stack and the ingredients that would go into those, but then also the flow of the food.
Yeah, the
throughout.
cycling of the ingredients and the way they get used at the Chef Academy and then they get turned into soup.
Yeah.
It's very intuitive, and that helps people learn the game. Yeah.
And things like the spices and all that sorts of stuff. And the black market, how, the black market, you go there and you don't know what you're going to get. It's not until you get there that you go, oh, is it going to be any good? Is it going to be good quality or not good quality? So all of those little elements are really, really fun. We even played with a friend who's been on a TV, like a reality TV show as a chef, and he loved it. He was like, this is so great. And like the banter that generates around the table is also like really nice.
Yeah, I really like the thematic tie-in with what goes into the dish. It's not always perfect, but that's what makes it even funnier. So the savory stack, for example, is one of the ones where it's like cheese, meat, and mushroom. Like, what is this stack of food? It sounds amazing, but it's unusual. Whereas comfort food, it's like wine, bread, and meats. That's like, and to make this burger with a glass of wine.
I also love the versatility of the soup. How you can always just go, well, when in doubt, just put soup in there.
Put it in the blender. Make it into a soup. And it's not just the foodie element that's really thematic. It's also the critter element as well. So with the different critics, they all have, so of course you only choose one per game, but there's a variety of them, and usually what they're asking for is very much in line with the type of animal that they are, which is really cute. Likewise, with the additional workers that you can recruit, they're all very thematic and very cute.
The zoo chefs.
Yeah. But also this game, we want to talk about how it works mechanically as well. And, a lot of people are going to be comparing this game to Flamecraft. Is that comparison warranted? In some ways, yes, because it's the same publisher. It's also, you know, a similar looking world, very accessible to new gamers as well, that Sundara Tang has beautifully created. But also remember that this is a different design team.
Yeah.
So not the same designers. But actually this game is a much crunchier.
Yeah,
much
this is a level
crunchier
up
than
in terms of like complexity and like thinkiness.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I love Flamecraft for what it is. It's a beautiful game and it's very accessible, but for me it's not quite challenging enough. Whereas this game, I feel like it can be as challenging as you want it to be. And by that I mean that actually it's not too difficult to teach, and hopefully you got a good understanding of how it works from our description. But you can really challenge yourself to try and do everything in this game. You can do as little or as much as you want to in each game, but optimally, you are trying to make sure that you do the short-term challenges the best way possible to maximize points without wasting ingredients, but also then save those high-value ingredients for the end game, because there's a lot of points that come out of that as well.
Yeah. So I think I like particularly with this one also all the different levels of choices that you have. So initially with the whole simultaneous action as well as everyone picking the cards or the locations at the same time. I love that also helps save time. You're not kind of waiting forever for your turn to come back. But then having, first is that tension of which locations am I going to go to, but also the other level of the game of going, well, who else is going to go there? So what's going to be highly contested?
And you're sitting there and you're looking at the locations, and so many times people are like, I'm going to swap them, because you're like,
but also then the order. So it's like which speed of chef are you going to send there? So it's like, I know this is going to be highly contested, therefore I'm going to make sure that I send my mouse because I know it's going to be the fastest, and it's at least going to be guaranteed to get one item.
Or conversely, you're like, everyone's going to go to the garden top shop. That's going to be a mess. I'm going to do my own thing and go to the black market. And then everybody has that same thought process, and you all end up in the black market and nobody goes to the garden top shop.
I'm glad that there's always at least a, because sometimes you can end up not getting anything.
Yes.
But there's always at least a consolation soup that you can take. And even if you end up in a location and there's just ingredients that you don't really want to pick up, then you can just pick up a soup instead. So I like that flexibility.
Yeah.
So that's one level of strategy. But then you have the other level of like, okay, as I'm collecting these ingredients, am I going to use them for the short-term challenges, or am I going to, if it's something really high quality, if I manage to get the 7 cheese and there's only 7 of each one, maybe this is the one that I want to save for my critic, because I know that I can only provide 1 token for the critic in most cases. Some of them, for example, I think from memory, the mouse loves cheese, so there's an exception with the mouse where you can serve as many cheese tokens with that meal as you like, but usually it's only going to be the 1. And so there's that balance of, do I use it in the short term to get these stars, or do I keep it to the end for that? Because also then there's going to be a best course scoring and having all of them scoring. So it adds,
there's a lot of layers. And then on top of that, there are 3 secret end game conditions that if you want to sacrifice picking up ingredients, you can go and look at those and find out what they are. But you are sacrificing some of the time picking up other ingredients. So is that a worthy trade-off?
I love sorry.
No, that was it.
I was going to say, like, I love that also, you'd go to a location. It's like I went to the desert vendor and I picked up some carrots. But then also I decided to like have a chat to the people there. And I heard a rumor. And every time someone looks at the rumor, there's that interesting. Putting it back.
Or is it?
Yeah. And you can obviously, as you collect those, you're also tracking them on your board. So you know the ones that you can go back and also check if you've already unlocked them. But you're also trying to get that variety. Or sometimes, I've played games where I'm like, I'm just going to go blind. I'm not going to spend any time getting rumors, but then you're just hoping that you're meeting some of those conditions that will give you points. Accidentally. Yeah. I really enjoy that element as well.
I think though, for the amount of layers, there is a little element of maybe it's not as easy for a younger audience to get into straight away. And part of the reason is because of understanding how different elements are changing what you're trying to do. And also, of course, because you're looking at these in secret, these hidden objectives, you have to be able to interpret them yourself. So you could play more of an open hand version until younger kids get familiar with it. But, out of the box, it's good to know that it is a crunchier, slightly harder experience, more in that mid-weight realm. But because of that, we have played this with newer gamers. We've played it with gamers who like heavier games, and everyone has been really delighted by
it's a delightful
this mechanic.
experience. I think like that's how I would summarize it. By the end of it, everyone's like, oh, that was so nice. And then it's such high scoring as well at the end. Like as in when you're kind of adding up your critic, or I don't know, I usually tend to really go for the critic. I think you've had games where you ignore the critic, so I don't know if that's just been my experience, but it's very satisfying.
I'm also not very good at it.
Well, there's all these things that are scoring, and it's like you've been building up to this, and I
also really like, and of course these components are not final, but what they have done is included a scoreboard on the back of the player board, so that it really helps with that keeping track of all the different ways that the critic scores points, so that you can very quickly compare those points and get the victory points that you've earned from that part of the game. Now, we've also played this game at different player counts, and out of the box and officially right now, it is a 2 to 5 player game. There are rumors that I found out from a token that this might extend down to solo and up to 7 players, but of course, check out the campaign for more information about that. But from 2 to 5, we have played actually at every player count. And of course, as you imagine, the interaction really ramps up at the higher end, and I prefer it that way because you get to, you know, have more interactions with more people, and, you know, the scoring's a little closer and more interesting, but it scales really well at 2. I was quite surprised that just by removing some of the locations.
Yeah, so essentially what would happen is you for the higher player counts, you're adding more locations, but also some of these locations are scalable in that this is the 2-player side, which only has 3 items, but then the higher player count has more items.
Yeah, and it works really well. Because
yeah.
even when it was a 2-player game with Maggie and I really felt the tension of the worker placement choice element almost equally as much. The only difference is that fewer ingredients come out because there are fewer locations, which means that sometimes it's just bad luck that you don't get the ingredient that you need. You have to take your chance more on the black market and hope that you get that ingredient. So at a higher player count, you've got more chance of getting an ingredient because it's there, but less chance because there's more people competing over it. So it's an interesting dynamic, but it's played really well at every player count so far.
I'll talk a little bit about some of the expansions as well. So we know there's going to be this a la carte expansion, which brings in sort of additional carts that you can put into different locations that will have their own tokens as well. And so what they do is, obviously this is optional, and this is again going to make it even a little bit crunchier. So the sauce is going to add 3 points to usually whatever matching ingredient it is.
Yeah, so instead of taking an ingredient,
that
you can
becomes
take a
one of the
sauce
token ingredients. That you can collect. The trophies are just going to, if you manage to win the highest value of a particular of the matching ingredient type, you'll get an additional star. There's things like the organic cannot be refrigerated, so these are higher value regular items, but you can't keep them past these refrigeration stages. So it's things that you go, oh, they're really high value, I'm going to have to use them.
Use them fresh.
Use them now. They're organic. Ice is also really interesting because it's all about allowing you to store additional items at those refrigeration stages. And then tofu, which is essentially flavorless, and it must be matched to a spice. So for example, if I manage to put my tofu matched to a fish spice, now that's going to be a fish tofu, so it becomes fish, and they usually have, again, really high value numbers. So they're all really like, they all make thematic sense.
Yeah.
They're all really quirky and they're all just fun. But again, if you wanted to simplify the game, you just play without them. The other expansion is the sort of asymmetric chefs that you would start with. So it's kind of like the head chef of your restaurant, and they're just beautifully, what do you call it? Sort of.
They're based on celebrity chefs.
So it's like Julia Wilde and Jamie Oliver and Bobcat Flay, and they all obviously have an asymmetric ability, so either something that you're going to be able to start with, or that will a particular power that you'll have throughout the game. But they also come with stars to help balance their abilities a little bit. So they kind of start with some victory points as well.
And again, you know, in Cardboard Alchemy, there's probably going to be a lot of other things that are part of the campaign that we don't have visibility over, but it was great to be able to add those little elements to the game to see how it would scale up in difficulty. And, you know, they're just nice add-ons to make it it a bigger experience. I imagine the more and more that you play this game with the same people, those will be welcome little bits to add a bit of variability into the game. So in summary, probably for our taste, the gameplay of this is a little bit crunchier and more interesting than Flamecraft. Although I will say that I don't think it's fair to have a direct comparison of the two games.
They're different games.
They're different games, but I know that because people are going to be comparing them, it's important to say their differences.
I feel like this will hit the table a lot more for us in our gaming group and preferences. And this is something that, again, like it's very easy to teach as well. So I can see us like bringing it to gaming days or conventions and things like that, teaching it and just letting people have a game while you're playing something else. And again, I think it'll fit. It'll fit a lot of different player levels.
Yeah,
as well.
and so of course we're going to reserve our full review and our scoring of this game until we get an opportunity to play the final copy. This very much is an early prototype, but we hope that it gave you some insight into what's upcoming for Critic Kitchen. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll be back with more board game content soon. But otherwise, bye for now.
Bye.